Okay, everybody, remember that Beyonce packet. Make sure you can find that now. And if you can't, you'll have to go to my Canvas page and download it, save it in your language arts folder. So you should have your clause packet, aka the Beyonce packet, and we're also going to be going through this PowerPoint, which you've already seen the beginning of. So we've talked about the difference between dependent and independent clauses. Remember that we talked about the song Independent Women by Destiny's Child, so that you could remember independent women, they don't need no man. Just like an independent clause does not need anything else to make sense, to be a complete sentence on its own, not requiring any more information. So an independent clause is a clause that has a subject and a verb and can stand alone as a sentence. Dependent clauses, however, rely on something else for support, and they are under the power of something or someone else. That other thing is the main sentence, the independent clause. So dependent clauses, just like independents, also have subjects and verbs, but it needs more information. We've talked a lot about adjective clauses. Who has a brother Tina's age is an adjective clause. It's talking about somebody. So the sentence could be, Lester, who has a brother Tina's age, drives a motorcycle. Who has a brother Tina's age is the adjective clause. So that's just a reminder. We're moving on to adverb clauses today. And there's an example of an adverb clause right here. Unless Graham gets at least a C on his report, as you can see, it seems incomplete. We need more information for that to really make sense. So I'm going to skip through all the adjective clause stuff and go right to adverb clauses. So one question to get started thinking about adverb clauses, think back to your earlier ELA teachers. Has anyone ever told you, don't start a sentence with because? Well, guess what? That's probably because you used to do this when answering questions about texts. In Chapter 1 of Percy Jackson the Lightning Thief, why was Percy confused when he came back to class after the lunch break? So if given a question like that, and your teacher asked you to write using complete sentences, many of you might have answered something like this. Because everyone was acting like Mrs. Dodds didn't exist. That is not a complete sentence. The truth is, you can start a sentence with because, but only if you're starting the sentence with an adverb clause. And then you're going to have an independent clause. You're going to see tons of examples. And here's an example right here. Because Mrs. Spots is teaching you to write adverb clauses, you will be able to start sentences with that word. I'm sure this is a very exciting moment for all of you. So, of these 5 sentences, some of them are independent clauses that could stand alone, and some of them are dependent adverb clauses. I want to see if you're able to figure out which ones can stand alone and which ones can't, just by reading them, even before we've talked about adverb clauses at all. I purposely did not capitalize the beginning of these sentences so you would not be able to tell based on that. Hopefully you picked number 1 and number 4 as independent. They can stand alone as a sentence. You don't need any other information for them to make sense. The pickles are usually brined in jars or cans with vinegar. That can stand alone. Common seasonings are garlic, dill, mustard seeds, bay leaves, and most importantly, salt. And these, of course, are the dependent clauses called adverb clauses. When you read them out loud, it should seem like something is missing. Since the fermenting agent, lactobacillus bacteria, is washed off in store-bought cucumbers, yeah, what? You're waiting for more information. Even though it sounds disgusting to me, okay, as long as the pickles are fermented with vinegar, still not sure if that is a complete sentence. It is not. It is an adverb clause. So, adverb clauses. Adverbs always modify verbs. And you can remember that easily because the word verb is right there in adverb. And it answers questions like how, where, when, and what to what extent. So all the verbs are in blue here. Ran, gathered, visit, and wash. And the adverbs are words that describe how these verbs are being done. A lot of adverbs end in ly. But we're not just talking about the adverb words. We're talking about adverb clauses, which contain a subject and a verb. You're going to see some examples in the next slide, but I want you to recall when we talked about adjective clauses, every single one of those began with what was called a relative pronoun. There were only 5 of them: who, whose, whom, which, or that. That made them really easy to find. Just like that, adverb clauses always begin with a subordinating conjunction. I wish that I could say these are the 5 and memorize them, but there are several. Dozens of subordinating conjunctions. The ones that you see here are commonly used ones, but on your Beyonce packet on page 4, you have a box that includes these and more. So let's take a look at some examples of complex sentences that have adverb clauses. On this slide, the adverb clauses are purple. Here we go. Before we go shopping, I need to see how much money I have. You can see that there's 2 parts, the adverb clause part and the independent clause part. I cannot paint my bedroom until I move the furniture out of the way. As long as you clean up after yourself, your mother will let you bake a cake. Let's all eat snacks and get pumped up until the game begins. On your Beyonce packet, you have a few questions on page 4. I wanted you to make some observations. First of all, where can you find the verb that is being modified or described by the adverb clause? Here is, let's look at a strong example. Until I move the furniture out of the way, this is saying, answering the question, like, at what point can you paint your bedroom? Paint is the verb that's actually being modified. In this example, until the game begins, what are you going to do until the game begins? Eat snacks, get pumped up. These are the 2 verbs. So you'll notice that the verbs exist in the independent clause. So in the other part of the sentence. So everyone on your sheet should write that down. Where can you find the verb that's being modified or described? The verb is in the independent clause. Second question, if you remove the adverb clause, what can be said about the rest of the sentence? Let's take a look. So let's imagine that we can't see purple. I need to see how much money I have. That's the independent clause, okay? We've taken out the purple. I cannot paint my bedroom. Your mother will let you bake a cake. Let's all eat snacks and get pumped up. What do you notice about everything written in black now that I've taken the purple out? I hope that you notice that everything in black can stand alone as a sentence. It's an independent clause. So that's what we're going to write on our Beyonce packet. If you remove the adverb clause, what can be said about the rest of the sentence? It is an independent clause. It can stand alone as a sentence. Let's take a look at the next question. If you remove the subordinating conjunction from the adverb clause, what happens? So again, now we're just looking at the purple. Before we go shopping, I'm removing the subordinating conjunction, which is just this single word before. I've underlined all of the subordinating conjunctions. So I am now going to read all of the adverb clauses without the subordinating conjunction. We go shopping. I move the furniture out of the way. You clean up after yourself. The game begins. What do you notice about what I've read? These adverb clauses without the subordinating conjunction. Hopefully you noticed that without the subordinating conjunction, the rest of the adverb clause becomes independent. That's why some people call these subordinating conjunctions sentence destroyers. That's their nickname. So you take these out, and the rest of the adverb clause would be able to stand alone as its own sentence. So that's what we're going to write on our Beyonce packet. If you remove the subordinating conjunction from the adverb clause, what happens? It becomes independent and stand alone. Pause if you need to. And finally, when do you need to use a comma with adverb clauses? You may have noticed from this slide that two of them, this one, have commas, and this one do not. This is not because I just randomly put commas or because I made a mistake. These commas are purposely there. Can you notice and make up a rule as to why you would use commas in certain situations with adverb clauses and not in others? You noticed that whenever you had the adverb clause before the independent clause, you need a comma. So in these two cases, as you can see, the purple is first. Another thing you could notice is that you could actually switch these around. I need to see how much money I have before we go shopping. And if I switch that, then I no longer need the comma. So here we go. When do you use the comma with an adverb clause? Use a comma when the adverb clause comes before independent clause. Just going to look at a few more examples. See if you can identify the adverb clauses in the following. I'll read each one and then pause on the Edpuzzle. As long as it does not rain, I will take the dogs to the bark park. What's the adverb clause? Mrs. Potts' students may not sleep or eat until they master adverb clauses. What's the adverb clause? While her students do practice exercises, Mrs. Spots will eat scrumptious brownies in front of them. What's the adverb clause? Although it is February, the weather is unseasonably warm. What's the adverb clause? And finally, each class period is shorter because it is an advisory day. What is the adverb clause? One final note. The following sentences kind of seem like they do have adverb clauses, but they don't. Here's how you can tell. After the game, we have a long wait to get out of the parking lot. After the game seems like an adverb clause, but you know it's not, because if you took out this subordinating conjunction, the game, that's not a sentence on its own. If it said after the game begins, then it would be an adverb clause. Same with this. I will not make a resolution until New Year's Eve. Until New Year's Eve, you might think, oh, adverb clause, it starts with that subordinating conjunction. But New Year's Eve is not a sentence by itself. And finally, and I have been working out a lot since being elected president of the fitness club. Since being elected president of the fitness club, there's no subject here. There's an action, there's a predicate. If it says since I was elected, then it would be an adverb clause, but it's not. You are on your way to mastering adverb clauses. Great job. Let's get some more practice.